Good morning and welcome to a little bit of a late start for this one. I had very different login details than what I usually have, so please forgive me for being a couple of minutes late. I'll get everything started up, but this particular one is about writing to attract Google search results. I'm Dante St. James. I think we're going to have a bit of fun with this one and hopefully get a little bit more interactive if we get enough people on board this morning who want to have a bit of a play with their own particular set out of that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let me just get this started, get that screen shared, and let's get underway. Sharing screen in 3, counting it down, 2, 1. Look at that. We've got it. Writing to attract Google search results. I'm going to start off with a quote from Rand Fishkin, who is quite the SEO expert himself, has created various expert tools for SEO, including Moz, which he sold off some years ago, and has now recently started up a new thing called Spark Toro, which is a lot to do with influence and the backlinks coming in from different mentions of your business around the internet. He says that better content is outweighing more content. And this was in the context of Google's search results and how to get them to a point where you understand how they affect you and the effect you can have on those. What we're going to look about this morning is how Google works. So a very, very basic look at the basics of how Google works and judges your links according to everyone else's links on the internet as well. We're going to look at the things you can do yourself and then go a lot deeper into that by looking at writing for search engines, which is essentially the same as writing for humans as well. And this is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, delivered in Western Australia by Business Station, Queensland by Regional Development Australia, Brisbane, and in the Northern Territory by Treaty Business Consulting. I'm Dante St. James, a bit about me to come, but I think unless you've been hiding under a rock, I'm probably fairly known through this whole ASBAS program, but I've done a lot of work with the ASBAS program, with the NICE program in Queensland and the Northern Territory. Also doing a lot of work with Facebook's Community Boost program through their Sydney office. And then I'm based in Darwin myself. And it is an absolutely glorious dry season day and a public holiday here too. So if I'm a little bit slow, not because I'm hungover, no, definitely not. It's because I probably was expecting to sleep in a little longer today. So let's get it all started on how Google works. Google has very defined ways that looks at ranking your stuff above someone else's stuff. They have a very defined set of measures they put in place that ensure that what ranks best is the thing that their particular users are wanting to get. And it's also about making sure that your ranking is not unfairly tricked, or they're not tricking Google to be able to get a higher ranking than you. And the whole purpose of this is to basically make the search result that someone's getting the search result they're looking for, at least the most relevant and most sensible and most well-matched result for the thing they're actually on there searching for. It kind of looks a little bit like this. If you start from the large bauble on the left, we're talking about the trust level of the website. Now, that's something which is earned over a long period of time. It's got a bit of sun shining in my face here, sorry. It's learned over a long period of time. It's not something which you can sort of magically influence in any other way, apart from just being consistent over a period of time. The second factor is how popular your page is. Now, this is something which I guess you can have some effect on just by simply buying ads on Google to get more traffic, but you'd have to then buy those ads on Google to get traffic all the time. It's not something you can do once and then it gives you a sudden boost. It's something which you need to do over a long and sustained period of time. So you can't just expect to do one ad campaign that delivers 1 million people to your website and then think that that's enough. It's definitely not enough. You need to then continue to get that 1 million people over time. Then it's the number of and relevance of links to your page or your website. Now, this is called backlinks. So that's a way of getting other people to link through to you, to refer your particular pages, blogs, your website address, any of that sort of stuff through their, from their website. And then also then it's down to how well you've optimized your site or particularly your page for Google to be able to index. This is then probably the first of the areas that you have a lot more influence over. The quality domain registration and web hosting is still a factor, and that's mainly because of the web hosting side of it. Whether your web host is a fast web host, which then delivers what the next point is, which is a performance of your page for visitors. So this is a bit of a nebulous thing. This is a little bit more like the speed of your page loading, the ability for your page to deliver the information that someone is looking for and match the intent that they came into your site for. And also things such as ease of navigation, ease of being able to read. So that's something you definitely have some control over. And then finally, the social media links, mentions, and reputation. That's things like reviews on TripAdvisor, reviews on Google, recommendations on Facebook to a lesser degree, because I don't really, excuse me, carry across very easily to Google, but it is still an important ranking factor. What we're covering today is just two of these areas. The green one, which is how well you've optimized your site or your page to be indexed by Google, and therefore also be optimized for consumption by a person. And then also looking at the performance of your page for visitors. So how you can increase that performance to better match what people are looking for, and therefore get people to the answers that they are wanting. So let's look at first a couple of those areas where you do have a little bit of control over what's going on. By doing your own SEO work, you have things you can do, such as things like short paragraphs of text. Now, there's if you've ever used WordPress and you've had the Yoast plugin, this is one of the things that does give you a lot of recommendations. Also, plugins to your browser like Grammarly, for instance, do throw this one up quite a lot. Long paragraphs of text that go on and on and on and on, make you want to fall asleep because there's so many of them. They're big blocks of words that make it really hard for people to read. It also means that from Google's point of view, is you're not getting to the point quick enough to match the search credentials that someone has coming into your site. So you can help break this up by adding things like dot points to lay out the features of what you're describing. Let's say for instance, you're doing a blog post on how to cook scones. You can break down the steps into dot points. Particularly numbered dot points are really effective when you're doing things like recipes or how-tos, step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. And then you can have expansion points later on for details. So you can start off just with those dot points and then expand on those after you finish your dot points. This can be something like in say a tourist operation, like for instance, this particular tour of Uluru, where you have your top experiences linked from the front page. So one way you can make it very clear to Google and to consumers that this particular piece of writing is very important is you can actually put this through to your front page. So actually link to it from the home page. Material that's linked through from your home page to somewhere else in your site is judged by Google to be a lot more important than, say, just a random blog entry from 15 years ago. So for instance, if you've got something which is 5 particular blog articles or pages on your site that contain the very core aspects of the message you're trying to put across, then linking those from your front page, not just from your menu, but from actual blocks on your front page, let's Google know that this is core content. This is important content. This is the kind of content you need to be able to, bring across the fact that you are painting this as something which is very, very central to who you are and the service you provide. And then having no more than 5 of those on a page means that it makes it quite exclusive. So these things are definitely the most important things. There's certain reasons why I guess that the things that are linked from your menu. So for instance, if you've got 5 menu items along the top, these are usually the 5 most visited pages on your website because they're very easy to find on the desktop, but also on mobile as well. And a mobile, the layout's a little bit different. It could be that you have it, say, for instance, the most important stuff is towards the top of the mobile layout. So let's just say, let's point at a mobile screen. Up here would be where the most important stuff is listed, not just branding. And then as you go further down, you have to scroll through the stuff that's further down the page on mobile, which is where most people consume their content these days, is going to be judged as less important. So you define the priority of that stuff by putting it higher up on your page. This goes to every page on your website as well. So something you might want to do is to have a bit of a practice by writing a blurb about one of your products or one of your services using a bit of a format such as the title of the product at the very top, a short paragraph. It only needs to be 2-3 sentences at most. Then have a list of your dot points of the features of your product or service. So if you're a consultant, that can be something like the number one thing that we have here is that our top thing is your choice of in-person or online consultations. Number 2 could be consultations held between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Number 3 and number 4 and number 5. So having at least 3 of those points, up to about 5, gives a really good expectation of what you're going to write more about further down. So that's where you can go into then your expansion information. That expansion information is then taking it and going, we're open 9 to 5 on weekdays, and then you can expand out onto things like a link to your calendar to actually book that time, or it could be an explanation of why that is, or where also the extended information about that open time. So we're talking about, for instance, closed on Australia Day, closed on Anzac Day, closed on Christmas Day, open on Saturdays by appointment only. That could be a way of expanding that. Or if you're writing, for instance, in case of a product description, you can say 100% organic, and then you expand in that point further down and say, we are 100% organic because we're certified by this 100% organic association. Everything we use is based upon no pesticides in soils and using natural ingredients, and whatever the blurb has to be that expands upon the dot point you had about the 100% organic. Next up is a very strong principle, which is from, I think, the Story Brand by Donald Miller aspect of communicating with customers online. And this is you writing for the visitor, you're not writing for you. So what you're doing is focusing in what's great for them, not so what's so great about you. Think about that for a sec. This is where you're literally going against your instinct to promote yourself. So normally you would promote yourself by simply saying, we're been open for 25 years, 3 generations of family working on it, your local guy, if it's cafe, we like it in the photo, we roast our own beans, that kind of thing. They're all great features about you, but that's not actually benefiting the customer. There's no benefit to your customer that they can perceive of why being around for 25 years matters, why being a family-owned business matters, why roasting your own beans actually matters. All they understand is the things that are in it for them. So that instead of talking about we, us, you're talking about them. So it'll be, you will enjoy a fresh ground roasted experience of coffee. You have access to our coffee 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are in control of your coffee experience. So you're talking about everything to do with them, not to do with you. So replacing a lot of the us and a lot of the I with a lot of you. So if that makes sense, it's making sure that the core messages on your website and on every single page are written for that person. So it's kind of like the opposite of when we were doing Facebook ads maybe about a year ago before things loosened up a little bit, where Facebook ads would get blocked because they mentioned the you too much or focusing too much on the person and not enough about the product. Facebook has since lifted all that because they realized that's not actually how advertising works and marketing works. So you need to be able to get to the point of what is the benefit for that person. So when you start from the benefit of the person, you start to veer away from what's so great about you. Because let's face it, most of our businesses aren't really that unique. What I do is not unique. In fact, everything I know and everything I can do is Googleable. I just bring it together in a nice, neat little package. So my approach then on a website needs to be what's in it for the client, for them to be able to engage with me as opposed to doing it themselves, rather than here's all the reasons why I'm so good and why I know all this stuff. So I tend to not want to start off my presentations like most people do by saying, hi, I am, and here's all the things great about me. I tend to go, look, here's what it's in for you. So remember, I started off with what you're going to get out of this. Here's what this is about before I went, this is who I am. That's because I wanted to start off with what's literally in it for you with this. So you can do that, putting the benefits of what you have and what you do before the features. So you're not listing off, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. You're saying you'll be able to access this. You'll have the advantage of that. You'll have, the experience of this. So that's swinging it around from a you focus to a they focus. And it's a particular kind of technique in writing, I guess, which is stepping outside of your bubble and stepping inside to their life. And it's a process that's funnily enough called empathy. So one thing you could do when you go away from here is go and look at a website of maybe one of your competitors or someone who does something very similar to you, and have a really good look at it and about what can be improved by writing for the customer and not for the business. So a lot of this is some things like, for instance, car yards, car salespeople. If I just look up a website now, say for instance, I'm going to look for a coffee shop, maybe. So a coffee shop that's got a website, Laneway Espresso, which I think is actually in Adelaide. Yes, it is. Okay, so one of these things that they have here, it's very, very them oriented. So if I stop my sharing of this screen and share my other screen, you'll see what I'm talking about. So if I go to their website, I'm seeing that Laneway Espresso House, here's something about them. Here's where we are, and we offer this, especially coffee, breakfast, brunch, and lunch, Monday to Saturday when they're open. Something about our philosophy and everything we do. Now you're seeing all this, we, ourselves, our menu, it's about their staff. Come and join us, tucked away. And it's all about them. It's basically all written about them. So a way that this could be swung around is, say, for instance, they could go, Laneway Espresso House is conveniently located for you in Ebenezer Place in Adelaide's East End, offering the specialty coffee you love, breakfast you'll come back for more, brunch that's available when you need it, and lunch 7 days a week when you're in town. So you're swinging it around from being, here's a bunch of features to here's a bunch of benefits. Notice how I dropped in benefits there. I was going, special coffee you love, breakfast that you'll know and come back for more with, brunch that's available when you need it. So immediately we're going, not just a list of features, but we're spinning it around to say it's a feature and here's the benefits straight away. This is just really, really self-indulgent. Our philosophy, everything we do is provide the type of place and service we want ourselves. That's, to me, is really, really, to use a really bad word, wanky. It's not really speaking to the client. What the client wants is not something that they want. The client wants to be able to access, if this particular coffee house actually understood what their client wanted, it's probably that they don't want to have to line up to get a coffee before they go in the office. It's probably that they want to be able to get a seat when they want brunch. They want to be able to go 7 days a week because they don't always just, go during working hours. Sometimes they're there on a weekend as well. Things like our menu is full of locally produced produce can start off with being a lot more about the actual customer by saying, you wanted a better, you wanted food that was produced locally. Our menu is full of that kind of food. So you don't have to worry about how long it takes to go from paddock to plate. So immediately you're saying you don't have to worry about, and you asked for, rather than saying our menu does. So overall, this is a pretty lazily written website. It's not the world's greatest website. It's very, very basic, and they probably spent about an hour building it. It's just there to be an online business card, but there's certain things they could do to make that a much better experience and a much more client-focused experience instead of focusing upon themselves. So there's lots that you can do in there, and it can make it a lot easier. Just sort of opening up my Q&A here because nothing is actually coming out the way I need it to. So my apologies if I'm a little slow to answer questions. It's just things aren't showing up on my screen the way they should be. Just 1 second. I'll just quickly unshare this screen so I can actually see what I'm doing and pull out the things I need to pull out. There we go. So Andrew was asking how many words is in a short paragraph. That's really, really good to know. So sentence-wise, you want to make sure your sentences don't go for more than 20 words. It's very hard. If you think about it in terms of how you would read this out loud. So if a sentence was so long that you had to take lots of breath breaks along the way, or you felt like you were quite exhausted at the end of reading it, that's too long. So generally keep your sentences under a bunch of 20 words each. And then a paragraph, to keep it short, should be no more than 3 lots of that. So 60 words all up, 20 words per sentence at the absolute maximum. If you can go shorter than that, it's even better. So if you need to, break it up into a new paragraph. If it goes a little bit longer than that, just split your stuff into more paragraphs. The whole idea of paragraphs really in this time and age is less about being grammatically correct and more about making sure you've set up a situation where people can not feel overwhelmed with a whole lot of text all coming up in front of you. And the whole purpose of that is to get people to keep reading and not get that what the kids call today TLDR, which is too long didn't read. It's where things are so long and so complicated that they can't understand what's in there. And the sort of the ADHD in many kids today, or even in myself, if I see a great big blocks of text, I just run away and just go, no, that's too much, that's too hard. So doing your own SEO work can also be in answering questions, and Google loves a good Q&A. So one here, and we'll have a bit more on this later on, but it's all about, asking those top 10 questions your customers will ask you. That's a great source of content. Answering the top 10 questions that you wish that your clients or your customers would ask you, and fitting what we call a Google featured snippet structure. We can see an example there on where to stay in Kakadu is this answering in a list. And we've got some more information about that coming up really shortly as well. And keep those questions coming. If anything comes up that you're not sure of, have a think about what are the top 10 things that your customers already ask you, or even so, the top 10 things that you wish they would ask you. That's a really good exercise to go on. That immediately gives you 20 pieces of content, 20 extra pages on your website. That's pretty impressive. That's what I build my podcast off. And I do a daily podcast. Had an episode go out this morning, and all of it is based upon the questions I get asked along the way, or the questions that I've researched through Google tools such as the Keyword Planner, Moz, SEMrush, all those sort of tools to understand what it is that people are actually searching for, and then matching my content to that. So eventually I run out of those top 10, because if I've got 20 pieces of content, is not 365 pieces of content. So I either have to pad it out, repeat it, or just find more sources of where those questions are. Where you're providing the answers to those questions, you suddenly get this ability to be able to attract a lot more search results. The example I'll give to you from what I got from this was, I was often asked in forums how can you target people with ads in Facebook based on the group that they're in. Now, you can do that based on you being an admin of that group, or at least being a member of that group, and putting a piece of video content in there. And I did a step-by-step way of how you do that. That on its own now attracts 1,000 plus visits to my website every week just to answer that question, because I happened to write it in such a way that Google really liked, and it made it the default way that people find that question and that answer. So what I need to do is go in there very shortly and sort of rejig that content a little bit to make it even more clear and easier for people to read. At the moment, it's sort of overcluttered with photos that are kind of not relevant. So I need to make that a little bit more relevant, and then match it with some audio content and also some video content that may help. And that's, it's proven to be the biggest source of content. Now, I've had two other things that are now coming up the ranks. They're getting about 200 to 250 visits per week to my website based on that as well. Now, are they converting to customers? No, not all of them are. But what happens is that as a result of me getting more traffic than any of the other digital marketers in my market, I'm actually getting people raising my profile for all the things I actually do and I actually want to sell, so that when someone in my local market is looking for what I do, they're now going to find that, particularly if they're looking for expertise in Facebook. Andrew is asking, is that still an FAQ page? This is like taking the FAQ page and making it something much bigger. So making it something much more broad. So taking the idea of an FAQ and turning it into a blog. So rather than just one page with FAQ with very short answers, you're taking each one of those questions and answers and expanding them to be an article or a whole page on its own. And Andrew is also asking, does Google like FAQ page title still, or Q&A, or questions and answers? It doesn't really matter what you call it, as long as you're asking a question and answering a question in that page or in that blog entry. So rather than having one page with all your answers, you can still have an FAQ for those very basic to listen to, very basic to answer things. But I think when it comes to wanting to attract searches, you need to expand that out a bit more and have something that's a bit more in a format on a page that's dedicated, or an article that's dedicated for itself. So let's now go a little bit deeper into writing to be found and how to really attract those search results from Google through the content that you're writing and providing. And there's certain things that do actually attract search results like nothing else. They're things like product pages. So product pages for products, if they're quite unique products and you're the only provider of them and people are looking for them, you will be the default place people will go to find it. If you're producing a product that 38 other providers are doing, then you're kind of competing against them for attention. Blog posts and articles about what we're just kind of looking at just before. Lists are an amazing way of getting it. And you can see proof of this everywhere. Wherever you want to go and see things to do in and name the area. So you go things to do in Perth. And the kind of things that come up really high are lists of things to do in Perth rather than just an article. Guides and how-tos are also incredibly popular, not just from written perspective, but also from video and also from audio. So how-to podcasts, how-to YouTube channels, and then also how-to pages on websites as well. And then landing pages, which are a very specific beast of their own, that are designed almost to be SEO machines. They're designed to do nothing else but get a result or get someone to do something on that page based on the search that they're doing. Let's dig down a bit, hey? So we're going to start looking at the product pages. Now, again, with the product pages, this is like we we're looking at before. We're focusing in on what's in it for them, not what's so great about you. So you can go, oh, yes, here's the amazing things we do. It's all 100% natural, 100% organic, 100%, color, natural colors, natural flavors. That's all great things about your product, but it's not linking through to the benefit. So the 100% natural colors means that, yes, this product has 100% natural colors, which means you don't have to worry about the reactions with kids. So you're immediately linking a product's feature to a product's benefit. Talking about, again, what we looked at, the you will, you have, you are, talking about them, not talking about what's so great about you. You're talking about the experience and the outcome that your customer can expect. And looking at the benefits before you look at the features, rather than going 100% color free, you can say, knowing that you care about your kids, you'll be relaxed because products are all 100% artificial color free. So then it's starting with a concern they have and answering it with a feature of your product, rather than just going feature, 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 feature. You're going benefit, here's the feature, benefit, here's the feature. So you're immediately linking something about your product to an issue that they already have. Blog posts and articles. Now, this is probably now linking back to a bit of what Andrew was asking before about the FAQ. It does feel a little bit like an FAQ. So blog posts and articles are very effective when you ask a question in the title that people are asking. So that could be, is it safe to swim in Port Hedland in Western Australia? Then you answer the question in the first paragraph. You say, it is generally safe to swim around the large beaches in Port Hedland, but do be aware that we do have, in certain times of the year, irukandji and box jellyfish, which can cause serious harm, even death. So it's recommended that you do not swim in the ocean unless it's between the months of May and September. So you're saying, answer that question in that first paragraph. And then you can actually back that up with 3 dot points. And you go, 3 dot points could be, here's the 3 reasons why you may want to reconsider swimming in Port Hedland. Number 1, the presence of marine jellyfish. Point 2, the potential presence of crocodiles. Point 3, really strong riptides that could actually turn your swim deadly. And then you can expand upon those. You can say, okay, I've got the 3 dot points, marine jellyfish, we've got the crocodiles, and then we've got the riptides. Then you go down the next bit and go, here's more about the jellyfish. Here's more about the crocodiles. Here's more about the riptides. So you don't have to completely explain your answers all in that one first paragraph. First paragraph is basically saying, yes, you can swim in Port Hedland, but only in certain times of the year. Number 2 is the dot points. This is why, this is why, this is why. And then the third part of that is expanding in a couple of paragraphs for each one of those dot points. That creates the kind of format that Google really loves, because it's able to, when someone says literally in their searches on Google, can I swim in Port Hedland? Then that gives an exact answer to that. It says, Yes, you can at certain times of the year, which it gives the answer to the exact question they're asking. Then it gives you, but be aware of 1, 2, 3, and here's more that you need to know about 1, 2, and 3. That kind of format is really powerful to Google. That's only because it's also really powerful to people. We don't tend to read in depth from start to end of anything. It's not like reading a book where you're literally going linear from start to end because there's no real other way to read it. We tend to scan when we look at pages. We scan over from the title to the very first paragraph to those dot points. Often we'll skip the paragraph, go straight to the dot points because we figure that's where the important information is going to be because it's been highlighted by those dot points. So we start off with the title. Here's the question. Here's the answer. Here's the dot points. Quite often that's as far as anyone's going to go. They're not going to go further down. But some people do go further down, and Google does appreciate you backing up your statements, particularly if you can cross-reference them to somewhere else. According to Parks and Wildlife WA, this. According to Wildlife Warriors WA, this. According to Surf Life Saving WA, this. So you're actually cross-referencing to really good sources of information. Then that information you're providing has extra authority and credibility, and therefore Google goes, yep, they know what they're doing. They've put together a good answer, and they've also cited it. So they've actually backed up their information rather than just being opinions. Lists are powerful because that's the way things like BuzzFeed works, like every tourism website works. Top 10 lists in particular are really popular. We love a top 10. We absolutely love a top 10. You go anywhere around the internet, especially on YouTube, you'll see top 10s of everything. The top 10 celebrities who got fat, the top 10 celebrities who got thin, the top 10 celebrities that you never really thought that would have failed, the top 10 reasons why traveling in the Northern Territory is going to change your life, all that kind of thing. Andrew's is asking, should a video Q&A be tilted sideways to be better on mobiles? I'd say, yeah, always probably do it. On mobile, I think if you're doing it in that sort of just go with where you think people are actually researching you. If you're researching you on somewhere like YouTube, you're better that way because that's the way YouTube works. Even on a mobile, when we watch YouTube, we tend to turn it over to see it in its full widescreen format. If it's something like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, any of those, the upright video is fine. The portrait style video is just fine. So if you're doing video Q&As, that's a really good thing to do. Video top 10s are even better. If you can produce, so for instance, I'm in my blog, I'll show you how I do this. I haven't started doing it yet on video, but I've started doing it as a podcast. So I go into I'll just share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. Probably be helpful, wouldn't it? Share screen, go over to desktop 2, desktop 3. So I go into the learn area of one of my websites here, and I can say here when what you want to say doesn't always match their needs. So this is the one that went out this morning for my blog post, but it's also a podcast. So I go in here and I go very, very quick answer the question, split it up into a couple of dot points. And then I've got a link there where you can actually go and listen to the article. So it usually links, and that goes off to my podcast. It finally gets there. There you go. And then you can actually listen to that article being read by myself with my dulcet tones. Usually that will appear a little bit better. Now you may want to go, okay, here's the outline I'm doing of it. So here is also a video of it, and you can put that video up quite high. So for instance, that first photo there doesn't have to be a photo. That could actually be a video instead. So you can have that down as another way to skip people forward to be able to, provide that answer very early for them. So this one's not written in that particular format. This is written in a bit of a different format, but very soon I'll actually be doing that, Andrew. I'll actually be putting that first thing there is going to be the video of that particular blog entry. Doing that every day is a little heavy. I've spent probably the last 3 months just trying to get daily blog posts and backed up as a podcast. I've got that down to a bit of a fine art now. Now I need to add the video side into it as well. So got my plants in the background to make everything look very pretty. I've got my ring light to make my face look a little less unpretty, and all those things I want to do to set that up. So it's soon going to be a video as well. So yeah, really good question. Video actually really helps to boost that kind of thing and gives you, I guess, another way to link yourself through to people who learn different ways. Not everyone learns very well through listening to voice. Not everyone learns very well through reading stuff. Some people need visual cues as well. So I've got to figure out how to do that and do it all in under 1 hour a day. I wish myself luck. Short paragraphs, lists of items with short descriptions, like this one over here, which is the top 10 things to do in Alice Springs. That was the number one thing that came up. It's from Tourism Northern Territory, which you'd expect. And it comes up with very short paragraphs that explain all those top 10 things to do around Alice Springs. You'll find that exists for every city, every state, every tourism area on the planet. I've all got this kind of format because it works. It's nice and small bites and able to be consumed really easily. So one of the homework items I think you've got to go home with now is go, well, if I can do this, what are the top 10 things I could write about? What are the things that I could produce that are very relevant to what my clients ask, what my customers ask, or what you wish they would ask, particularly if you're in a new business that hasn't got an established audience. Something else that attracts search results, we mentioned guides and how-to articles. So it can be things like how to get to. So this one, for instance, for Lorella Springs, which is on the way to Borroloola in the eastern side of the Northern Territory. Sorry, my Northern Territory references are really strong here because that's where I live. So I'm sorry, this was actually originally written for tourism in Northern Territory. So what you're looking for is things that are giving you instructions of how to use my product, how to bake a better pizza, how to fix fraying iPhone cables, how to fix your own Mac computer, how to all that sort of stuff. It could be then guides. So the easy guide to Aranda culture, or an easy guide to the Chinese history of broom, that kind of thing. Things like the best four-wheel drive guide to East Arnhem Land or Cape York or wherever the area is. Those guides, the word guide and the other words how to, quite often are the way that people are searching. They're looking for guide to Cape York Peninsula, or it could be how to drive to Derby in Western Australia. Those sort of how to are very quick questions and answers as well. So you can vary things through. It doesn't always have to be in that whole dot point format I was talking about before. It could just be literally a set of instructions. And that's often what is like a recipe. And recipes are another thing that really does well on Google because it's in that how-to format. How to bake scones. Step 1, get the flour. Step 2, get the butter. Step 3, get the other flour, the corn flour, to be able to dust it with. Whatever you do. I've never baked scones before. I just like eating them. So you get whatever your how-to is that's in your particular industry and match that really, really tightly to what your outcome is going to be and what you're trying to promote and what you're trying to communicate across in your particular niche. So I want you to have a think about when you get off this particular webinar, what is a guide that you could write? So I can think of lots of guides. For instance, I'm building a brand new website called The Small Marketer. It's all being about repurposing my content that I'm making through these videos, through all the other stuff I've done, all my blogs, and making it in a format that's not about me trying to sell more of my digital marketing services, but it's about creating a news site where you can go and just look at a guide and different playbooks on how to do different things. So my guide would be how to set up your Facebook page, or how to, like that big one I got, the how to retarget people in Facebook groups with ads, that kind of thing. So you think about, what is your how-to? What is your guide? What is it that you do that can have a bit more of an explainer on how to use what it is you sell, or how to use your services if you've got a service-based business as well. Flying through it today. Landing pages. Oh, welcome to this beast. Landing pages have gone through a bit of a renaissance lately. They were kind of looked at as this way of people to be able to convince people very, very clearly through a thing called like a squeeze page. And I think you've probably come across one of these where you see an ad for something such as the ultimate guide to Facebook ads. And then you go off to look at this, and there's this great big long page with lots and lots of talk, and they're using a lot of neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy techniques to try and convince you to buy like a $3,000 course or a $797 service or piece of software that's going to change your life and make everything much, much better, right? So that kind of landing page is the extreme. I'm talking now about landing pages that are not so much designed to convince people to do something, but are designed to attract a search result. So your search result that you want to attract could be something like, where do I see in this case, the example here, where do I see how do I visit the areas that were shown in the movie Top End Wedding? And Top End Wedding was a particular movie. It was filmed up in my part of the world. And people have been literally asking this question: how can I see the places that were mentioned and shown in this particular Top End Wedding movie? So they created a landing page that answers that question, or at least draws that. So I go, I'm looking for the Top End Wedding tour experience. Then you'll find this particular landing page with Tourism Top End that allows them to promote that they are, here's where the places were and where you might want to go and see them. And here's a curated list of the tours, accommodation, and services that you may want if you want to recreate the Top End Wedding experience for yourself. The same thing can be said for anything you want to get a search result for. Landing pages are really good when they relate to a particular trend. So if the trend is right now is, I don't know if you've seen them, they're called poppets, I think, or pop soft, or they're like, that whole thing that you're popping bubble wrap, and it feels like really therapeutic, and some people just sit there and want to just do that. They feel really good doing it. It's a very satisfying feeling. Well, there's now an item that's been created that allows you to pop it, but it then refills, and then you can pop it again. So almost infinitely, you can keep popping, and you get that therapeutic feeling of popping without ever actually running out of bubble wrap. So that's a trend that you could write about. Now, a lot of people who are in, say, for instance, the ADHD sort of area, people who are working with kids with learning difficulties, hopping on that trend in order to get themselves looking a lot more relevant and a lot more authoritative in response to that trend. So writing material that is about a landing page of, are poppets good for your kids? Are poppets a good replacement for a fidget spinner? Are poppets a fidget? That sort of thing. So it's appealing to those kids who do need to be fiddling with their fingers to keep them calm. And then that sort of thing then creates them as, I guess, a more authoritative voice in the world of ADHD and other associated disorders. You can relate things through the news. So there's enough of the news. So people sort of went through the whole thing of relating everything to COVID, or relating everything to economic meltdown, or to JobKeeper, or to whatever the news is, particularly if it's a news that's affecting your local area. So for instance, if you had a cyclone go through your particular part of the world, or a weather event, maybe a hailstorm or a very large thunderstorm that caused damage, hopping onto that kind of news and linking it through your services. So you're saying, affected by damage to your home, here's the top 5 ways you can help to recover sooner. So if you're an insurance broker, for instance, 5 things you should know about your insurance before the next storm hits. So you're sort of relating through the things that have happened and then relating it to your product or service. Now, of course, you can go too far with this. A lot of the tenuous links that people made with COVID or with some disaster can make them look like they're trying to take advantage of people's misery. So you want to be very careful with the way you do that. Perhaps relating to news that it's more positive in your area rather than news that's more negative in your area. Relating to a specific topic is where, say, for instance, you are relating to organic food or people who want to be vegan, or relating to particular niches and specific demographics. So writing a page that's specifically geared towards women between 25 and 39, and then another page is geared towards young men between the ages of, say, 18 and 25, you'd write very differently because you're appealing to very different people. That's what landing pages are good. They're good at taking your product page and then making it and replicating it into something that's written for a very specific audience. So you're not writing in very pompous Queen's English to a 19-year-old who just wants to buy a product from you. So you're making sure that everything's written in a way that's for that specific person. Google can tell who the person is who's searching. They can tell the intent of the person who's searching. So they know then to deliver not so much the other page, but deliver this other page that you've created specifically for that kind of person. Now, this does take time. It's not going to happen straight away. My landing pages, I've got 300 of them that are all for various things that I do, linked into very specific demographics and questions. So to do that, you can send people from to those particular landing pages. Now, these landing pages aren't always going to be linked through your menu. So that's one thing that's very different about landing pages. They are a part of your site, but they're not part of your site. They're not linked from other places in your site. They're not linked to other places in your site. They are designed to do one thing and one thing only, which is usually to get that search result so that you get people coming through to your site and lifting your ranking for the site overall, or they're designed to get someone to buy something. It's very specific. You don't want them going to all the different options up the top and in the different links going everywhere, because you want them to get this sale. You need them focused in on this particular thing and this particular journey and that thing only. Andrew's just asked, does it help SEO by sending off-page traffic to on-page website products? It actually can. So that's a little bit different to what I was probably describing. When you're sending off-page traffic to on-page products, so if you're sending people through, say, for instance, other websites. So I've got several websites. They all link to each other. So the ultimate purpose, say, of my small marketer website will be to, if there's a particular article in there, it then has links through to me and to my other websites. So I'll actually bring up the website so you can see what I'm talking about. The small marketer, share the other screen. It's good that I've got all these examples ready to go. Otherwise, it'd be we would have been over quite a while ago. Okay, this one over here. All right, so if I go to this particular small marketing one, which is missing its photo, if I go to say this, why you need to start using Messenger. So I'm going through this. This is on this other website, and then down the bottom, I've got links through to me and the things I do. So I can say this is linking to my danteandjames.com. This is linking to clickstarter.com.au. This is leading to my podcast page. And this is leading to an article about my relationship with Facebook, at Facebook on their actual website. So that way I'm leading people away to things. Now, what this means is if I've got links to these coming in from this site to my other sites, that's immediately showing Google that someone's that things are quite, very specific. Otherwise, I could go, if I want to look at, say, start with your Facebook page, I could link then to, here's a guide on how to start your Facebook page at clickstarter.com.au. So actually leading them through to a product or a service that I provide could be actually really useful. It doesn't necessarily have to be leading them to a sale. It can just lead them to another guide or another playbook that I've got on another website somewhere. So that's because I've got a network of sites. So I can link all these different things through to each other, and that helps me to do a lot better. I don't expect everyone to be able to build multiple websites and grow that whole thing out by making it like a big, complicated set of circumstances. I just do that because the area I'm in is very, very competitive. Like there's, so many different web designers out there, so many different people who are selling social media management services, and so many trainers that do what I do are looking for every advantage I can get. So landing pages for me would be more about answering very specific questions, such as who are the best web designers in Darwin? And I'd list them and say, I'm one of them. Captivate's another one. Sprout Creative is another. Sam's website's another. Dash Creative is another. So I've actually listed all my competitors, which is fine because they're pretty good too. But I'm also mentioning myself strategically at the top of the list. So the psychology is always going to say, oh, well, go for the one that's the top of the list because it seems to be the one that's really mentioned. And that could appear in something like the small marketer or danteandjames.com, not knowing that, that's also my sites. So landing pages can be pretty important. Just know whether you're trying to get that landing page to be a sales landing page or whether you want it to be something that's attracting search results, because the sales landing page is usually linked through from, say, a Facebook ad or a Google ad. A search results landing page that you're using just to lift your whole site traffic up to get a higher result on Google for all of your searches that you want to be found for, that's a different kettle of fish. That's not necessarily linked to a campaign. It's just linked to trying to write to get those search results through. So have a think, what are the landing pages that you might want to produce? There's a whole lot of them out there. You could do. Every single business has at least that top 10. So you've got that top 10 questions that people ask you, the top 10 questions you wish they would ask you. That's 20 pieces of content straight away. That's probably, tripling the amount of pages that most people have on their website already. So when you're thinking of writing blogs, think from that angle. When you think of writing new pages, think from that angle, but you don't have to link every single page through to your menu. That's what a landing page is. It's something which is unrelated to the menu or the rest of the structure of your site. And it's just designed for that one specific thing, attracting more search results so that overall your website ranks higher for the other things you want to be found for, particularly your products and your services. I hope you got something out of that today. There's I could sit down and do an actual instructional tutorial, which is all about here's exactly what to write, here's how to research those keywords and all that. But I think there might be a webinar for another day of how to find out what those things are. But I did mention a couple of tools. Number one being the Google Keyword Planner. So that's a place where it could be really important to go and try for. Another one is SEMrush. Have got a keyword tool that you can use to say, okay, scan this website and tell me what keywords they've optimized for. Moz, M-O-Z is another source of that sort of thing. And Ahrefs, A-H-R-E-F-S is another excellent source actually of reading that kind of thing to try and find what are the things that this particular very successful website has optimized themselves for, and how can I then take those ideas and optimize for those things as well. So do a bit of competitor research, use those tools, and then use some of those tools we had of how to write for SEO. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, I think in Queensland, almost, not quite though. Thank you for joining me this morning. This will be available on YouTube a little bit later on. So once I get off this call, I'm going to immediately get off and go and load this up to YouTube once it processes, so that you can watch it on my channel. Just look for my name, Dante St. James, or you can search for Business Station, and I'll have this one going for you a little bit later as well today. Again, thank you. And any questions you have, my email address, which I'll just share my screen once more so you can jot that down if you need it, is Dante, D-A-N-T-E, at treaty, Treeti.com.au, or just harass me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Insta or any of those places. I like to have a chat. Thank you. Have a great day.